It is a little bit past 1:15, so I would like to open the meeting. If people are still coming in, just come in quietly. And we have some business to go through right at the beginning. Normally, we would start with approval of the minutes. However, the minutes are virtually the reports that each of the committees gave in December. We do all have a copy of the minutes in this packet, all of us on the council. And if you would just look, really the only thing that might have an error, and I don't actually know enough to know whether or not it does, is the report on the election of new members of the Residence Council. Otherwise, everything else has been put in a notebook in the library where the minutes are always available. So I'm going to push out the necessity for approval of the minutes. The really first thing that I want to do is to introduce the new council members. And I won't make you stand up, but if you would wave, please. And these are people who are brand new. Joe Blumberg, Steve Gurney, Chris Johnson is not able to be here, but she is also not brand new. She is a past president of the council, so she has been on it before. Alicia Jones, Perry Level, and John Tully. And I'd also like to announce who the officers are. I'm president, which is why I'm talking. Vice president is John Tully. Secretary is Lucy Ambach, who is unable to be here today. And assistant secretary is Chris Johnson, who is also unable to be here today. So Nancy Rosenbaum is graciously continuing to take notes. She's the former assistant secretary. And we hope that this is being recorded so that notes can be taken, minutes can be written from the recording. Okay. Nancy Rosenbaum is treasurer. And Roz Lefker is assistant treasurer and will be the chair of the Employee Appreciation Fund. And Alicia Jones is assistant treasurer, will be assistant to the Employee Appreciation Fund. So all of you make them feel really good and give lots of money to the Employee Appreciation Fund. And there is still one other piece of business. The Residence Council is supposed to approve of the chairs of committees. So typically in January, although it can happen at almost any time of year, the committees report to us any change in chair, and we approve or say, oh no. But not in this case. I would like someone to make a motion to approve for House and Grounds co-chairs Carol Greenbaum and John Jones. Do I hear a motion? Alicia? And a second? Thank you. And all those who approve? Any disapproval? You wouldn't dare. No room for abstentions either. Okay, so Carol and John, you got the job. The House and Grounds Committee is a very important, well, all the committees are very important, as I'm about to say, but House and Grounds watches for everything from dents in the wall, and I put a really big one in when I was driving the trolley a long time ago. That corner by the bistro, hard to turn. To more like design ideas, working on how the living room looks, paying attention to the appearance, general appearance outdoors. So it really keeps us in shape and looking good. And so I'm glad to have chairs and 2 chairs for that. The council has liaisons to the committees, and I have a note to self that says names will be emailed to chairs. They will be. Or your liaison may give you a call if you're a chair of a committee to let you know that he or she is your liaison. And the purpose of the liaison is maybe to assist you in electing a new chair, or just to keep us informed about what's going on in your committee, and you informed about things the council might be talking about that are important to your committee. Okay, so let's see, I have to find out where I am here. I would like to kind of shape this year around the importance of the committees, because occasionally people comment, oh, the council doesn't really do anything, they just talk, or, oh, this or that committee isn't accomplishing anything. But in fact, if you look down a list of committees, which you can find on the bulletin board, you'll realize that each one brings really vital experiences to our life at Whitney Center. Visual art, music, lectures, library, the library, the gardens outside, all of them from one end to the other, conservation, welcoming new residents, and I mentioned this one, eyes on the appearance of our home, information about health services, and of course, the all-important dining. You are all important to the life and the vibrancy of Whitney Center. Without the hard, very hard work of committee members, a lot of things just wouldn't happen here. Many of you are already on committees and can testify that the work you do is important. If you're not on a committee, please consider visiting one that looks interesting to you and perhaps getting to work there. At least explore the possibilities. Committee chairs have the, believe it or not, 2015 description of committees in their house mailboxes for review because some of them definitely need updating. We all together make Whitney Center the place in which we enjoy living together, and we all need to work toward that. There are also interest groups. They are independent of the council, but they're also very important. And I found a folder in the office on that table in the office, the work table, that was full of descriptions of what the interest group do. And because there were a bunch of them and they didn't seem to be going anywhere, I put them at the end of the stage down there. So if you are interested in an interest group, you might pick up one of those and put it to use by reading it. And consider book group, the chorus. I'm not going to list any more because I'll forget. And there are a lot of them. So, and we were going to have a committee report, but it was going to be hospitality. And Chris Johnson will give that report at the next meeting. And I'm just going to say what I know she's going to say, that we're all responsible for welcoming new members. So when you see someone you don't know, say hello. And if it turns out that they're just a visitor, well, fine. But if they're somebody new, make them feel welcome, perhaps invite them to dinner. I haven't figured out how the bulletin board works exactly for the new Whitney Center residents, but I will, and their pictures will be up there and updated. Let's see. Oh, and this is just a brief announcement here. And then, well, there was a small grocery cart crisis this morning, which probably happens over and over again. And I have to tell you, someone was very upset because she had a heavy bag of things that she had been out buying. And there were no carts at all. And I mean, there were no carts, which are usually actually in that room that the door is to, but we typically enter it from the administration area. And Ken was there, so he carried that bag for her. But there really should have been a grocery cart. So there will be a memo to this effect, but right now for everybody here, please, when you use a cart and you're unable to return it right away, or at all, who knows, put it outside your door. Somebody will return it. A staff person or another resident who happens to be going downstairs. You don't have to return it to the absolutely right place, just get it downstairs and it will find its way to a useful corner. In fact, there are 3 places now where there are carts. The stairwell toward the north parking lot, you know, the one in the north tower, that has a small collection of carts. The closet in the living room and that area behind the wall there. So those are the places where the carts go. Now, Maria LaSala would like to make an announcement.
Thank you, Madam President. Friends, this is just a follow-up to the K4 announcement that I posted last week. Congregation Mishkan Israel in Hamden is, after a 3-year hiatus, hosting the Interfaith Annual Martin Luther King Jr. service this coming Friday evening. The service will begin at 7 p.m. and it includes clergy from all over the New Haven area. We have a bus ready to go to transport residents and friends from Whitney Center. If you would like to reserve a seat on the bus, and again, this is an interfaith service, so all are welcome, please be in touch with me, either personally, through my phone, office phone, or email, and I'll be sure to hold a seat for you. We will have pickups at both the north entrance and the south entrance, and I think the time is 6:15 from the north entrance and 6:20 from the south entrance. As I said, the service will begin at 7 and it is expected to last a little under 2 hours. The speaker looks dynamic, and for those of you who have been there before, you know it's a wonderful experience of people coming together to remember the mission and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. For those of you who wish to remain here in your apartments, I've posted the link to the service, which will begin at 7 p.m. So for those of you who would like to stay here at Whitney Center in your own apartments, you can participate in the service by clicking on the link that is on the K4 app. Thanks so much, and thank you for this little bit of time. I'll look forward to hearing from you and seeing you.
Thank you, Maria. I have to go back and correct something because I didn't introduce Esther Crystal, who's at... No, I was just looking at the list of names here and I thought, oh my gosh, Esther is continuing to, I believe, a second 2-year term, right? So she's not new, and she didn't hit my new list. And I apologize, Esther. I just wanted to make sure that I said you're still here. Oh, so yeah, I know. True for all of us, right? Okay, there have been some discussion about K4 communication and how quickly the notices disappear and how much paper we should be producing around it. So, Raphael? Or everybody?
So this is going to be a team effort here. So at our prep meeting on Friday, John brought up this issue once again about the elevator notices, or the notices that used to be in the elevator, and how that's evolved over time, and associated with K4 and how many people are using K4, and whether or not the way we're disseminating information about events and programs or so, whether it is effective. Ultimately, that's the question, right? Are folks, our residents, seeing notices wherever they're posted? Are they paying attention to them? Are they effectively conveying the messages that we want to convey so that the engagement in the community is at the level that to which we aspire? I think ultimately that's the intent of our communication system as far as we're talking about it here. And so I respectfully push back a little bit about the elevator notices, because the assertion, as I understand it, is there are less people coming to events because the notices in the elevators aren't descriptive enough, if I understood it correctly. Right, yeah, because we had taken them out completely, then we went back to like a hybrid thing, and so I challenge that, and John brought up a really good, he's a scientist, as you all know, and so I'm not gonna argue with him about this, but he brought up a really good point, like, do we have a baseline? Do we even know how many people were coming to lectures and films and things like that prior to the introduction of K4 and this whole transition? And that was a good question. Well, we hadn't really tracked for a long time that attendance. However, we did have a project, was it last year or the year before last, where we were trying to measure that sort of thing, and we do have some baseline data. So we're going to go back and take a look at that to see if there really is any correlation in terms of the attendance, because that's what John is challenging us to do and on behalf of residents, which I think is a great exercise. So we're going to go back, we're going to look at what the attendance was for certain programs, we're going to compare them to what we see today, and really start to try to get our head around from a data-driven perspective, right? Start to get our understanding of the issues here beyond the emotional issue of change. Right, and I also would just convey the message that what we're trying to do from an administration perspective is to move into a place where our communication is timely and accurate and reflects the changes that happen, sometimes last minute, but in a dynamic way. And it's hard to do that when we're going around distributing physical paper memos to various locations. So that was one of the reasons we actually went down this path in the first place. Now, so I commit to looking at that very intentionally here in the beginning part of the year to come to some data-based conclusions that we can present and work with, whether it's the whole council or we report it here, or maybe the group that the Residents' Council might want to put together. I want to make sure that we're engaging in good, constructive dialogue around this issue. That's what I commit to on behalf of the administration. Now, technologically, I think Raf's got some information, do you, Raf, about utilization of K4 and so on? Is that what you were going to talk about, or?
No, I was just going to answer the question.
Oh, okay. Did I answer it, or
Yeah,
you?
Specifically, I think the question was, or there was a, sure. And I'm sorry, remind me, the information was moving too quickly or disappearing. So I just need some clarity behind the question, and we could talk about that after, but I need to know where it's disappearing too quickly. Is it the app? Is it the sign? Is it the TV? So I could better understand that.
For me, it's in the app. I look at what's essentially the elevator notice, and as soon as time is up, it's gone, which makes sense in one way. But sometimes after I've seen a movie, I want to look up when it was produced or who was in it? Because
Sure.
I don't know any of those people.
So I'll ask the question. These are some areas of the app that we've discussed, and we intentionally have Herb Kaladi in the Computer Clinic address weekly. And I'm wondering if we could, and we record those sessions. So the question is, could we, there's some limitations to the app, and there's some things that we can improve based on your feedback. Can we compile all of that, have Herb included in his Computer Clinic as a FAQ sort of presentation, record it, and get it out so that perhaps that presentation will answer some of these questions? Might that work?
But will it allow us to say, stop, leave that on there for longer?
Maybe. So why don't we just, let me get some clarity behind the technical issues from the council so I can better learn and understand what some of those challenges are, and that will better prepare me to decide what direction do we go in. Is it through Herb? Is it to the council directly, or is it just working with some other groups? How about that approach?
I have something I'd like to add to that. If I may, Lynn, I just have one in terms of approach. So you may not know this, but the board of directors at Whitney Center had, through its Quality of Life Committee, had approved a task force be formed on technology, on utilization, and sort of looking at focus areas and where we should direct our resources that we have in terms of the quality of life experienced by residents and Thrive at Home members and our team members related to technology. We are coming to a point where Raf and I talked about this, we will be proposing to that task force that it end its run and transition to a potential committee or group that in partnership with the Residents Council for ongoing feedback in a structured way that we can collect information, we can analyze it, it'll be an ongoing partnership, and that will give us the platform for this kind of ongoing feedback and solution finding. I think it's hard to do in this kind of forum, to walk through and try to answer some of these things because they're not as simple as they may seem on the surface. So I'm proposing that you give us the time to have that next task force meeting, and then we'll come back to the council with that proposal.
And actually, I wasn't expecting solutions. I just wanted to propose an issue. Roz, you have a question.
Yes, I've been told that there were 28 residents, probably
Roz,
more.
microphone like
Yes,
this.
28 residents, maybe more, who don't have use of computers, don't know how to use K4. They don't know how to do these things. They're maybe slightly impaired or at a point in their lives that they don't have that. So I think it's important to keep the elevator notices there. Nancy and I are doing it in the north building, Lynn in the south, and it's important. This way they come in and they know what's going on. Otherwise, they have no idea what to do each day.
Yeah, noted. We received that feedback when we took them out. Right? So I thank the council for the volunteers and the folks that are putting that together and rotating those. We are actively looking at options for the elevator. A smaller digital screen in each elevator, or perhaps a larger screen at each elevator landing along the first floor that will only list today's events. And I do want to remind the council and guests that for those folks that aren't technologically connected or are still learning it, the paper options are still there. So we still have paper calendars at each desk. We have things in the mail room, and those are all accessible as well. But thank you.
Okay, I just want to remind that this is a council meeting, and questions from the audience can be when we conclude our meeting. At the end of the meeting. Yes. Okay.
Lynn, may I make one more
Absolutely.
comment relative to this? So this is really important. The whole issue, it's not just about the elevator notice, it's about communication in general. And I have a small team of senior leadership in the organization looking at all of our communication channels, including elevator notices, including memos and Channel 102, everything, to really examine how we leverage those different communication channels. And what we're finding so far is that we have multiple channels from which to choose, and therefore only partial data or a sense of what needs to go where is happening, and it is making it inefficient because we have so many different channels to consider. And so what we're looking at it from that global perspective, as well as the specific issues. For example, one thing that was brought up was the phone directory, a printed version of the phone directory with pictures. And that's what we used to have. Now it's on K4. It's very searchable. You can call someone from your phone and so on. We know, and I see two people right here that are really, passionate about this. We know that not everyone has the ability or has K4 app or access or is comfortable with it. And we're talking to those folks. We want to, our goal is to make living here easier. And we want to streamline things, but that goes for all of us. And so that's our intent, and we're going to keep working on that. But it does require some give and take, and that's why this partnership is important, that we pursue it. Because things like, and I know this came up a little bit ago, things like that directory, right, where we make the argument that I can tell who someone is, and I don't know their name when I'm passing them and so on. And my rather snarky response to that was, well, how many residents are carrying around the resident directory in their pocket? So how can they actually use that? Now, I didn't mean it to be disrespectful, but the mindset is that these things may deliver value that they may not actually deliver. And so we have to think about these. And I know a couple of residents were working on the idea for some name tags. And some residents are opposed to name tags, but some residents aren't. And I would posit that it doesn't have to be everyone doing the same thing all the time. If we want to go to a name tag to help with that identification, we can do that. Those residents who choose to do it can do it. Those who don't. And so my suggestion is that we continue to change and evolve together and work together on these challenges that are facing us as a community. So more to come. I'll be in touch with the council on this whole technology piece, including K4 and communications.
Thank you, Mike. Joe.
I hate to be in disagreement with Madam President, but I was under the impression, I felt that things were staying on the event calendar on the K4 for too long. I know, for instance, there have been days when I've gone to look at events, and it starts off by listing the events that were 2 days before, and you have to run through 2 to 3 days to find out what the actual event is.
Like I said, we'll look at that.
Mike is agreeing.
No, I said we'll look at it.
You're not referring to the outside TV big screen on here. Wow, I have never seen past information on it. Yeah, I'll definitely keep checking. Thank you, Joe. Are there any other questions from the council? Okay, then next, I'm going to call on Peggy.
Well, unfortunately, my news today isn't as good as it's been over the past few months. Unfortunately, we've seen that uptick that we were anticipating with COVID happen. Last Friday, I sent out a memo because we had 4 residents that had been diagnosed with COVID. I have always said if it's 1 or 2, I'm not going to send out a memo because we should always expect 1 or 2. But if that number rises, it's my duty to be sure I'm educating you to that rise. So today we do have 7 people, that 6 of them were just diagnosed today. Most of the people that were positive last week are through their quarantine period and fell off our list. So I am concerned. I am going to ask you to please mask up whenever you're, especially with more than one other person, because the only way to prevent this spread is to mitigate the virus transmitting from you to the next person to the next person. The other thing is with those 7 positive cases that we have currently as of today, we have 12 other people that are experiencing some symptoms but are testing negative, which we all know what that could mean is they'll be positive tomorrow or the next day. So again, I've always been very transparent with all of you. When things are good, I tell you so, but when things are not as good, I need to be just as transparent. So please be cautious, please mask up. If you're in any common areas like this room, I know this is new news to some of you, so I don't fault many of you for coming unmasked, but when you leave here, if you intend to be with a group, please do mask because we want to really minimize that spread. Nobody wants to get COVID. And like I've said, even though it's not causing hospitalizations necessarily, you still feel crappy for a week or 2. There's no other way of putting it. Everybody has different symptoms: fatigue, just really tired, don't have, they're really lifeless, loss of appetite, and you just don't want to go through that. The majority, just about all of you, are boosted, so I'm confident that you should not get very ill. But currently, we have 1 resident in the health center with COVID. We did have 2 on memory support. They're past their quarantine period now. So the 7 are in the apartments. So again, just word for the wise, mask up. We know January and February are the worst months for COVID. On a positive note, there is no flu that I'm aware of in the community. So we have COVID, but we're doing well against flu, no RSV. So we're not seeing the other type of respiratory illnesses, but COVID is not a good one to have.
Thank you, Peggy. You can see that I heard that there were a few
Yeah.
more.
I have to say, a week ago Friday, I got a comment. Lynn was kind enough to let me know that a resident voiced concern that I'm not sending out enough communication. And that's why I'm saying if there's 1 or 2, I'm not sending anything out because that's pretty much now, especially through the winter, to be the norm. If it goes up, I will. Last Friday, the Friday before New Year's Day, which I think was like the 29th or 30th, I did send out a memo because I had heard about the great New Year's Eve party that Maria was throwing. Maria Freda was, letting me know that she expected about 100+ people in this room to dance the night away. I wasn't going to tell you shouldn't dance the night away because we all need some enjoyment, but I did put in the memo that if you had a recent exposure, please mask up. I'm not sure how many people heeded that warning, and I think that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing people that got exposed from that New Year's Eve party. I can't say for sure because some people don't even know where they got it from, but there seems to be a common thread for people that have been in group activities. So that's why I'm asking to please mask up in groups. So thank you, Lynn, for that information too. And I will be sending something out within the day about the escalation of the 7 residents. And like I said, there's other people that I do anticipate will turn to positive because they already have symptoms.
Thank you, Peggy, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Ouch.
Yeah. Maybe next month I'll have better news for you.
Is there anything else from the council that I've left off the agenda list or anything that needs discussion among us? In that case, if there are questions out here, now is the time that you can ask them. Judy?
loudly. May I ask how many people here do K4? I'm sorry, how many do not do K4? Way back there, Phyllis?
Yes, seven.
Yeah, 7, wait a minute, back there in the back end, Phyllis Smith. 5 of the people who sit at my breakfast table do not do K4. 5 of the 7 of us. There are, and the whole idea of getting a directory with no pictures, which we depend on so much to look. We get the names, we meet a person, we get the name, and then I want to go back to my room and look at the person's picture. And is there a way that we are going to be able to get a directory with pictures? Is there, possibly? Hello? There were more than 7.
So we're just going to take the questions, we're not going to rebut.
I can get on K4, but sometimes the people that I'm friendly with also have cell phones, and that's not usually in the K4. So I have my old picture directory, and I write the cell phone numbers there. And also, if people have different names, I write them on the, so-and-so Smith is married to so-and-so Jones. I, write the other person under the names. And even though I have K4, and I have to say sometimes it skips, like I want to look for what's going on tomorrow, and it goes from yesterday, to Wednesday sometimes. I'm the only one I know that has that complaint, but it has happened to me a couple of times, but computers hate me. But anyway, I would just like to say that there are a couple uses for the picture directory that I really miss.
Okay.
I would like to first say that this is not anything to do with personnel per se. Therefore, the management team should not be objective or object to what I'm saying. I was shocked, surprised to learn that Gil Gilbane was no longer in the position of transportation. I felt that it was a responsibility of management to let us know, not the question of hiring, firing, letting go on part-time. That wasn't my concern at that point. My concern is the way it was not transmitted to the public, to our community. And I wonder if the procedure that we normally follow of letting the community know when something really exciting is happening or sad is happening, that you let us know. Gil is loved by all the people, and many people didn't know that he was not going to be in that position anymore, and probably still don't know. So I wonder if a system can be set up or followed through that the public can be alerted to it. Not a question of his not being part of it, not a question of personnel, question of procedure.
We might want to say to him, we miss you.
Yeah.
And how do we do that?
Okay, so we did make the announcement at the town meeting, at the last town meeting, and so, but yes, Phyllis, thank you. We'll look at the communication of that kind of news, because it is very important. Yes, absolutely. We agree.
Then he may be on a per diem basis, too. I understood. He may be coming to drive on a per diem basis.
Okay.
Right, so we may see him.
Carol, you have a question?
Anyway, I think that I would like, thank you. Excuse me, I would like to make a request for a real explanation to incoming residents how important it is to have a photograph. We don't care what you look like. We care what you look like, but we want to be able to, at our age, to recognize the hair changes, the walk changes, everything about us is changing, and it is, even if it's an old picture, we can pick up some features that are recognizable. That's why I think that whether it's K4 or a booklet, or even if sometimes that's in the library, there should be a record of how people appear so that it makes greeting people easier and more gracious. And so in a way, when you don't want your picture taken, you're being rather ungracious to the rest of the community who really wants to welcome you. I mean,
Yeah, Carol-
that's how I look at it, and I look at it why I think it's important to have that booklet with names and positions or biographies, that little biography that gives you something that says where you came from or whatever you wanted to say. Be at least accessible in the library. I felt that way strongly for a long time, and
You know, Carol, I kind of agree with you, but it really is a personal choice. I can't see making somebody have his or her picture taken.
I mean, I agree that they may really refuse, but I am saying how it's presented to them may change their thinking. And it may make them see, gee, I may need that because I'm going to have to refer to it someday, or it would be nice. This is really welcoming us and why we want to. The sales pitch, if you use the expression, is that it's an effort for us to be gracious and welcoming, and people who meet you and have no other way, they forget, but they need that. The community wants it desperately so that there can be contact, and see how it works.
Lynn, may I? May I? I just want to, Carol, thank you. And I think what you just did was very inspirational as to why people might want to, to have their picture taken. It is a personal choice, and most of you, all of you, went through some kind of experience. I won't call it traumatic, but for some people it's been traumatic, the move to Whitney Center. And for some people it takes a year or longer to get adjusted and to feel part of the community. For some people it happens overnight. So what you just said, I think in some kind of repeated fashion, reminding folks that this is the value for the community over time might appeal to those folks who've chosen, at least initially, not to have their picture taken, but eventually might be more comfortable. So I think that is a very inspiring plea that you just made, and I would suggest you do it, over and over.
I was just going to ask, or do you ask again, maybe 6 months later, or?
An individual sheet goes into the back of
Yeah.
the library or something.
No, to get away from the tactical implementation part, the base of your question is, can we inspire folks to get their picture taken if initially they didn't want it? And yes, we don't have a systematic re-ask for pictures, but I think what just happened, many residents, if not all residents, will see it, will hear what you just said, and that could trigger it. I think in these kinds of forums, it's not a bad idea to raise the issue again.
Erwin?
So I just want to emphasize that we have a underutilized publicity organ here, namely, outside the mailroom, there are those boards. And on it are pictures of recent residents who have come here. And I think we need to exploit that more. That's a place where pictures of people who have newly arrived can be placed. And they are kept up there for quite a while, sometimes I think too long. So I think that those bulletin boards really, it's right outside the mailroom. Everyone goes to the mailroom every day. We should exploit those. I mean, that can take the place of K4 to some degree, actually, if we just publicize that fact. No, I don't think many people look at it. I don't think they understand that there's a bulletin board there. So that's what my suggestion is.
Thanks for that plug, and it reminded me that we have the 3 public kiosks One is outside the mailroom, one is here at the south, and one at the north. And the photo directory can be found on those. It is the K4 app on a 32-inch public screen. So if you don't have a smartphone or a computer, you can walk up to any one of those kiosks and browse through the app and browse through the photo directory.
Yeah, the other thing is when those new photos are up, and I have to admit, I have not explored how to get them up and down in timely fashion. I have taken a picture of the pictures so that I have the information and, printed it out and stuck it in my directory. Because sometimes I need the phone number of somebody new.
People who've been here a couple of months that are not up there.
Yeah, Debbie,
Yes,
that may be my fault.
That's why I said, someone said, there's some people who have been here a couple of months and the pictures aren't up there. Right. That's why I said, use the word underutilized. If that could be kept up to date, you put the pictures on as people come in, if they were willing to do that, keep them up there for a while, and I think that would solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, it's good feedback, and we do have that ability. When we post something to the digital screens, the manager who's managing that content dictates when the post will disappear. So maybe it's, this kind of feedback and getting back to those content managers with the feedback to say, it's great stuff, but we need it to appear a little longer, or we need it to be saved so you can reference it later. So, noted.
Betty Lou?
Yes. I don't know if anybody noticed this, but I do look at that, and there is one picture missing. And I wanted to tell you, I don't know whom I should ask about putting it back.
I think she's sitting behind you.
I know
actually.
she is, but she didn't say anything, and I felt very bad that I'm missing her beautiful picture.
And I don't know what happened to it either, but that's research for between now and the next meeting. Shirley?
Many words have been spoken about
Hold
pictures.
this way. Hold it
Only
this way.
one sticks out in my head. Many, many reasons to have it back. Do not rule us out. We don't have all the electronic equipment. Many of us do, many of us don't use it, even though they have it. Doesn't matter. It's nice to be able to sit down with the booklet, peruse it, whether I'm saying the right thing, and you look it over, know who you're looking for, and be grateful. Many, many reasons don't rule us folks that don't have all the electronics. I beg you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more comments or suggestions? Anything more from the council? Okay, wait for a microphone, though.
What is the cost, you figure, of putting another K4 or the scheduling in an elevator as opposed to putting in the daily changes posted right in an elevator, just nicely printed? What's the cost of something like that, do you think?
Well, there's obviously a cost to,
Yeah.
we have to wire an elevator, power. But I think the challenge is, though cost is always on our mind, the challenge is timely and accurate information. And when we present material on paper and there's a last minute cancellation or a change, that's the challenge, is getting everything updated and that information out to people. And that's why we like to use technology in addition, so that we can get you the information promptly. But
Let's wait till we're rolling in wealth, please.
thanks.
Let's not be short-sighted about cost, Carol. And I know as a business owner, you know this, that there's an opportunity cost to consider as well. That opportunity of the staff that it takes to go do that stuff. pulls them away from other things that technology can't replace or supplement. So that's part of the calculation. And we do need to think about all these things, but I appreciate your question.
When you say staff, you're including everybody, am I right? From management all the way down to,
Sure, anyone who's involved.
all right. So a lot of staff, if you will, that helps patients but their computer does not allow some of the things that are on K4. Am I correct in that?
I'm not clear what you're
Understanding me.
asking.
All right.
Yeah.
Does everybody who works here, I'm not talking about your hired staff from construction or whatever. That
Right,
gets paid-
outsourced, yeah.
That gets paid by Whitney Center, so to speak. I'm talking about, and it may be a misunderstanding on my part, which can easily happen, that, let's say, people who are doing the laundry or doing their supervisor may have access, but they don't have access to the information that's on K4 about people, so, or events. K4 is not applicable to them. Therefore, some of them can't, who are working even as certain aides or from the outside, aren't able to give a patient they may be taking care of, or somebody that they,
Yeah.
any assistance
Got it.
in guiding them in what's.
Yeah, so we're aware of that. Someone on the council mentioned that there are about 30 or so residents we know just don't have any technology. There are some residents that are at a point in life where they just can't use the technology, and they depend on whether it's our aides or a private aid. We have worked with the help of liaisons in identifying those, and sometimes with the aides themselves. We have provided the private aides access to K4 so that they can sit with their resident and go over what's going on in the community. In addition, we reached out to family members and provided them access to the K4 app so that they can get involved and know what's going on in the community and work with mom and dad. So we are doing that. The K4 is a resident-facing app, and I don't know that equipping every team member with K4 is the right approach, with the exception of that example. But we have other systems that we are looking, our goal for 2023 is to optimize and not underutilize many of our other systems that can provide those team members with the information they need for just a better experience all around. So.
Okay, Shirley.
Changing the subject a little bit. Is the elevator near the mailroom operational yet? And how it's been off a long time. Terribly important for many of us. Thank you.
Yeah, so the elevators, our goal is to get those up and running as soon as possible. Some of the challenges, you may realize, are the parts. So we'll make sure we put a notice on understanding the timeline when we think the elevator will be up and running. For instance, I know the one by the the north-south tower, there is a part that's about a 2-week delay. So we'll get some more information on that.
There was an email that came out today from Kara saying that elevator may be out for another month.
Another month. Yeah. It's a part. The reason is because it's a part. Getting the parts. That's the issue.
This is the, excuse me? This,
The microphone.
yeah, this is the problem.
If
where
I can, if I can say this, it is our intent to get things working as expeditiously as possible. Please don't let our answer be misinterpreted that we're not paying attention or that we're not anxious to get these things fixed. There are global supply chain issues that inhibit our ability to get the parts that we need. So we are doing everything we can to expedite these kinds of things. We don't want the elevator down. right? So I hear you. I agree with you. I share your frustration. I'm sorry, Roz.
Yeah, this is the problem where people who don't have computers didn't see that email from Kara. I didn't check my K4 to see if it was on there either. So is there a way for something like that to be transmitted to all the residents?
Yeah, that's one of the things we're looking at, Roz, to make sure that we're effectively reaching all of our customers with these kinds of data. Thank you.
Harriet?
Or whatever. Oh, no. We live on the 6th floor. One of the doors was locked and we couldn't get out.
During a fire alarm?
Yep. So in other words, you could come in on the 6th floor. You could come in from the elevator, but you couldn't. The doors, those big doors, were locked. We couldn't get out.
Yeah, that should
They
not be.
don't lock.
What's that?
They don't lock.
Yeah, they don't lock.
There's
So
no
let
way.
me find out specifically which doors those are. They will close, but they will not lock.
Well, if they closed, you could come in from the elevator to the 6th floor, but you couldn't leave the 6th floor.
Yeah,
Speak to the difficulty with the walker.
So I don't know if those doors are tested. Or
yeah, they are tested, actually. The fire marshal comes, we have to get those tested every year. So we will check in on that, but that should not be the case. I'll bring that up to our maintenance department. That should never be the case.
So-
There's always a,
And, sorry, Ken, I just, this is really important. If there's an active fire alarm, please don't go anywhere. Stay where you are, please. If there's an active fire alarm and those smoke doors are shut, they're shut to compartmentalize the smoke and the fire. So by you opening the door, you're breaching that protection. So please, our policy is defend in place. And we know we're going to go over this again at a town meeting, but please do not try to, if you're in your apartment or wherever you are, stay where you are during a fire alarm, and staff will come, especially if it's in that area.
I was in the hallway.
Right,
And that's what happened.
okay,
I couldn't get out.
right. And those are crash bars. So they're called crash bars on those doors, so unless they're mechanically locked, they are made for fail-safe open. So we're check that out. Okay.
I'm afraid to ask if there's anything more. Because it is 2:15, and I would love to have these meetings always be an hour long. But I do have a technology story for you, and there's a purpose to it. When I was about 6 or 7, my parents got a Bendix. How many people know what a Bendix is? Oh, almost everybody. It's a washing machine that tumbles the clothes around, and it has a window, so you can see the clothes tumbling around and around, like a lot of machines now, but this was brand new. So exciting that my parents invited the neighbors in to watch it run. We did not have a television. Anyway, this is leading to the fact that the laundry room had a flood Christmas Day, prompted a lot of your concerns about fire alarm, because of course a flood triggers a fire alarm. And I really want to commend housekeeping. The two that I know, Debbie and Shirley, have been going back and forth to a laundromat. So a lot of you may not even realize that the laundry has radically changed. And the people who work in the laundry are working I won't say it. They're working very, very, very hard to keep us all supplied with towels, even the pool, which has to be the lowest priority of any place. So when you see the laundry people, give them a big thank you. Yeah. So meeting adjourned? I won't wait for a motion. Meeting adjourned.